Welcome to this dose of the Gringos in Buenos Aires Podcast, a podcast that brings expat/immigrant life to you. I'm here with a special guest, a digital nomad by day, a day tripper by night. Let's give a warm Gringo welcome to Alex. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. Nice to see you. Nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, nice to finally meet you, man.
We've been chatting quite a bit over Instagram and WhatsApp for a while now. But,
For a while.
This is the first time I get to meet you in person, so it's a pleasure. It's an honor.
All right,
Thank you
cool,
for your host here at this beautiful studio. You got a wonderful setup, so I'm excited to hang here and chat with you for a bit.
All right, cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. And yeah, we've been talking for a while through this whole thing called social media.
That's right. I remember the first time I found out about you was through a friend of mine who went to, was it Villa Gesell, where you had your bar, Bukowski?
I had a bar called Bukowski.
It was Villa Gesell?
Yeah, it was in Villa Gesell, yeah.
And so he sent me some pictures of the door of your bar with all the Grateful Dead stickers and some trippy stuff from inside. I was like, where the hell is that, dude? Where are you? I gotta get out there. Then it said Villa Gesell. I was like, damn. That's a whiles away from me. But yeah, when I'm in Buenos Aires, I tend to stay in San Isidro, Becar, you know that area. So that's kind of home base for me when I'm here. And then, I don't really go out to the coast that much here in Argentina. I do most of my traveling kind of into the Patagonia area or Mendoza or up in the northwest in Salta, Jujuy, but don't go out to the costa that much. How about you? Where's home base for you?
Well, home base for me now is Buenos Aires. It's been Buenos Aires has been my hometown since the early '90s. And there was a stint I had there in Gesell where I said, "Wow, let me open up a bar."
Nice.
And I named it Bukowski after my favorite writer.
Yeah.
And it was cool because it had two levels. The bottom was Bukowski, which had books, a piano, and everything, and a bar.
Little literary cafe.
Yeah, everything Bukowski would like to have, and the bar. And upstairs, I was like, what do I do upstairs? And I was like, my second passion was the Grateful Dead. Is the Grateful Dead, and I was like, okay, let me turn the upstairs into Winterland. Nice. So I
music.
I had live music, and I tried to make it as dead and as trippy as possible.
Did you succeed?
I did. I lost my mind, and so did everyone else that went into that place, man.
Nice. I wish I would have had a minute to get out there, but I think it'll stay for the history books, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we find a spot out here, a dead spot, or we can join our forces between UI and the network out here in Argentina. If anybody out there is a Deadhead, let us know.
Yeah.
We want to know where you're from, know who you are. And
I could put together a trippy, cool bar.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
So hopefully someday. So all right, so let's get down to the one thing a lot of people ask me, and I get this all the time, at least whenever I'm outside. ¿Qué haces acá? What are you doing here? ¿Qué haces acá?
I get that one all the time.
Yeah.
Some people tend to think that the life abroad is always so much better, right? It's greener on the other side kind of scenario, right? Yeah. It's interesting. At this point in my life, I'm 46 now, so I was born in '79, and I've probably spent 50% of my time here, 50% of my time in the U.S. I was actually originally born in Argentina, so I'm Argentine by birth.
Oh, cool.
And then in the 70s, there was the military government, right?
Yeah.
So like in 1976, my aunt was part of some of the people that were doing the armed revolution here, and so she was the factions of Montoneros, but there's this other group called La ERP. Right, Ejército Revolucionario del Pueblo, and she was part of a confrontation between the military forces and that faction, right? And so she eventually was one of the people that died in that confrontation. That was in '76, and then in 1980s, my dad was in the banking industry in the finance world, and by then the military government was kind of running out of steam, right? And so they ended up doing a lot of extortion and kidnapping, and my dad had been kind of on a watch list of people to, hey, you might not want to hang around here very much, right? And so in 1981 we left. We went to New York, stayed in Manhattan for about a year, and then we moved out to Connecticut for about 10 years. And then after that, in 1992, when there was already convertibility, as we know about it from back in the 90s, and during Menem's original presidency, my parents felt like it was peaceful enough to come back. And then there were some other personal family situations that were going on that that drove the attention of my family to be back here. So I moved back in 1992, having grown up speaking English only, right? I'd never really got a chance to get a grasp of Spanish, so I had to learn Spanish as a teenager, right? So like I came here by 13, 14, and pretty much stayed on and off here during the end of high school. Did college out here, but always traveled back and forth, kind of on winter breaks, spring breaks, holidays and whatnot. And it's because we still had our green cards, and we didn't want to lose our green card status, right? And eventually, ended up studying journalism and communications. But during my early 20s, I got into headhunting and recruiting, and that was at a job here. I was doing in Palermo, and mainly for English speakers, and so.
Sure. You went to school. You went to college.
Yeah. I went to high school. I finished high school here in that San Isidro area. Then went to college. Did a year in Belgrano. Did 4 years in Palermo.
So you studied university here.
Yeah. I did.
It's cheaper.
Well, I mean, at that point, it was my family's thing. Like it was whatever was going on.
Cheaper than going to Michigan State.
Well, actually, my sister's kid, my niece is in Michigan.
Oh wow, yeah.
So like when we went from Argentina to the U.S., I had 2 older siblings. I still have them, but they left here at like age 7 and 9, kind of. So when they got there, they knew Spanish. They had a hard time, transitioning there while I was just a little baby. I was like 3 years old, 2.5. And so, I grew up gringo. They grew up hybrid. And then we had a little brother while we were living out there in 1984. 1987 is when he was born. But then when we moved back, like I was a teenager and he was about 4 or 5 years old. So it was a struggle for us to come back here to Argentina. Right? We had to adapt. It was
But at home you spoke Castellano.
While we were in the States, my parents made a big effort to not talk to us in Spanish because they wanted to make sure that we learned the native language, right? And so,
that would happen naturally.
Yeah, we grew up speaking in English, or like at least my older siblings had to learn English, and my parents would only talk to us in Spanish when they had to run after us because we had done something wrong, or your mom throwing you the chancleta. And so.
But did you grow up with the Argentine traditions, like empanada, milanesa?
Slightly, right? I mean, like after the first couple of years, my grandmas would start to come visit, and they would start bringing some of that culture. But there were during those first couple of years that we moved to the States, because of the military government, because the transition to democracy was still happening. We really didn't come back, right? So like I came back once for 2 weeks in like maybe 1985, 86. I can't even remember right now, but and then that was it. That was my total exposure to Argentine culture back then. And I had grown up learning some Spanish words here and there. I thought I knew how to speak Spanish, but then I landed here and I knew that nothing of what I had learned had served me of anything, right? And so. I ended up having to go to like when I went to school, I went to one of these schools that has Spanish in the morning and then English in the afternoon and sports in the afternoon. So when everybody was going to English classes, I was going to a private tutor in Spanish. And so for the first 3 to 6 months, I had intensive.
Did you get bullied?
So I took it as bullying, but now with retrospect, you know, I see it that they were just kind of trying to identify me as something, right? So I was a junkie forever
and ever.
And you know, people who maybe watch this and know me from back then, they're like, oh, it's a junkie.
A junkie.
You know,
sure.
But then
I get the shanky call all the time.
It was interesting, you know. Of course, I had my handful of fist fights here and there, but you know, stupid high school bullshit.
Yeah. Back then, it was okay to fist fight.
It
was part of growing up.
You know, I guess the culture here was kind of like conducive to, you know, stand your ground, defend yourself, learn how to, you know, stand up for yourself. No, this is in the 90s.
Oh, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we came back in 1992.
During the 1-to-1.
Yeah. By 1992, Menem had already been in power, I think, by a year or two.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little bit more. I don't know
took
about.
over in 89.
Yeah, something like that. So right as we landed here, it was 1-to-1, and that was another trippy thing for me because we landed and then all of a sudden, you know, we moved away from a place that was 1-to-1, like that was, you know, on the dollar currency, and then moved to Argentina, and that was 1-to-1. So it was like for several years, it was almost like being in the States, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you would go to the supermarket here and you could go with $100 and they'd change it right there and there and no problem. And you know, it'd be pretty much kind of like living like you were in the U.S., just in a different part of the world, I guess. I don't know.
So what was your first impression apart from the language? Did it feel like home?
There's a couple, I guess I'd have two like immediate thoughts where number one, I think, or three thoughts, probably like as soon as I got off the airplane, it was like the smell of leather and alfajores and chocolate. You know, it just kind of felt like that was in the air all the time, right? And then, of course, very quickly, also just the beauty of the women. It was a shocker, right? I mean, like growing up in the States, and I don't want to say anything that'll incriminate me later, but. The quality of the women for me and my perspective and what I had been exposed to back then just shut up like a stock that was, like NVIDIA
well, you were
stock.
in Connecticut. You were in Connecticut.
Yeah, and I lived a very isolated life.
Not too many hot chicks in Connecticut.
Yeah, you could say so. They were all over the border in New York, in Manhattan. But I lived an isolated life when I was a kid, kind of like in what we would call today a bubble, my nearest neighbor back then was maybe 200-300 yards down the road, right? And so like not like here where you're living house to house and you live in a neighborhood or un barrio or just you get to know your neighbors pretty quickly here. But, out there it was a different life, for sure. We lived in the in Fairfield County, which is just kind of like on the other side of the border from Manhattan, maybe about 45 minutes on train.
Were you into sports?
Or
just
not as much. I mean, I played lacrosse when I was a kid. Played a little bit of football, American football. Played soccer, but it was all kind of with the seasons, whatever was going on in school.
You can't say soccer, man. You gotta say football.
I call it football.
Or ballon-pied. Ballon-pied. You gotta say
old school ballon-pied.
Ballon-pied.
Ball pie. I guess I grew up kind of, just not being that competitive in sports. My dad was never a big sports fan, so he didn't really push it on us too much. So
well, most dudes that wear Grateful Dead T-shirts are not big sports fans.
You got everything. Like, look at Bill Watman, right?
You could be a sports fan, but actually not an athlete. In high school, you take different roads.
For sure.
You hang out with the jocks, or you hang out with the jocks, or you hang out with the stoners and the cool dudes.
And that's what happened, right? I mean, like at the last year at high school, at middle school in the States, I was in that crowd that was like getting late to school because they were all hanging out at the parking lot.
You're either at detention or at practice.
Yeah.
I think that's what it breaks down to.
Yeah. And so, how about you? I heard you were telling me you grew up in Philly.
I grew up in South Philly.
Are you Argentine or you?
I'm a
American?
hybrid. I'm a hybrid, just like yourself. Yeah, I'm a hybrid. I grew up.
You were born in the States?
Yeah, I was. The difference is that I grew up in a Spanish-speaking household.
Okay.
My mom and dad are both Argentine.
Oh, right on.
So I grew up speaking Castellano. We ate the milanesas. We ate the empanadas. We had the asados. Everyone we knew was Argentine or Italian.
Gotcha.
And so,
especially Philly, right? Where you had that little Italy spot.
Yeah, especially Philly. But it wasn't cool to be Hispanic, in Philly.
Yeah.
In South Philly.
Same in Connecticut.
You were labeled as a spick.
Yep. That was the one I grew up with. Yeah.
I got into a lot of fistfights over that. So we tried to keep Spanish on the lowdown. And if anybody asked, we were speaking Italian.
Yeah.
Because it sounded kind of the same. So what language you speak in there? That's Italian.
Yeah.
Different
I've
dialect.
gotten that one too.
From the north. It's not from Sicily.
What you guys speaking? Is that Italian? That sounds so beautiful. You say Spanish, and they're like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So that totally put you down a notch, It was like, you had the Italians, the Irish, and then you had the Chinese.
Yeah.
The blacks, and they were the spicks.
Yeah,
so it was like then come the cockroaches, man. So it was wasn't. So we would. I told everybody I was Italian.
Gotcha.
I said, I'm Italian. We speak Italian.
Well, I have German citizenship, so we use that one a lot with my last name. It was like we were able to say, "Oh, we're Argentine, German." There's, sometimes the eyes would look at you more favorably, I guess. Sure. But yeah, Argentina for so many people who are not from here, just sounds like it's at the where it actually is at the end of the world, right? I mean, it's so remote, so so foreign to them, and in many cases I've been. Whenever I told a couple of times when I've told people that I'm from Argentina, they're like, "Oh, wow, that's really exotic." And so
Misiones.
I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you got to be out there to really know what it's all about. But you could label it as exotic, I guess.
What's the biggest difference between the States or life in the States and life here? Biggest,
I mean, for me, when I got here, for me the biggest thing is it's still one of these places where it's the wild, wild west. You got rules. Yeah, you got the Constitution. Yeah, you got all this stuff. But it's one of those places where anything goes, anything can happen. One of the earlier memories when you were asking me turning 14. Kind of living down the street from a kiosco, and when my parents weren't looking, I remember because I actually remember my dad sending me to the kiosco to buy him cigarettes, right? Sure. And at 14, and they were like, no problem.
No problem.
Buy him a beer, no problem. And so then I just took advantage of that, and I was like, what if I just tell them it's for my dad? No problem. And so, being able to buy beer and cigarettes at that early age, I mean, maybe it's a deviance, maybe it's the wrong thing to share with youth today, but
sure. It's one of the things that blew my mind, man. When I graduated high school in Philly, St. John Newman, shout out to all my Newman classmates, in 1986, mind you. I came here. I got a ticket. Most of my friends got cars. You graduate high school. You get a car. You get something. Now I got a ticket to Buenos Aires. I was like, it's a pretty shitty ticket, but a pretty shitty gift. But I was like, hey man, I took it, and I had been here before. I had been here before. I remember I had brought a Nerf football that I could throw, and everybody was like, what the hell is that?
You're supposed to do with that thing?
Yeah. So I came here in 18, and I realized that I could stay out all night.
Right.
Till 4, 5, 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And back in Philly, it was 10,
Yeah.
2 if you had a fake ID, But it was at 2, my friend, my cousins, they were going out.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, this is awesome. So I went back. I started college, and I was like, I was working, studying day, working at night, and I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Why don't I just go back to Buenos Aires, man? That was fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I saved up some cash. I quit school. I saved up cash. I came here, and that's it. Never looked back.
That's beautiful, man. I mean, a similar thing happened to me, right? I mean, I came out here, really struggled the first 2-3 years, I'd say. Mainly learning the language, kind of going through high school, being an outsider, not really fitting in. But then after what we call third year or third form of high school, because high school here actually has like 5 years. Yeah. It's kind of fluctuated between 5 and 6 years, but I guess it would be like 8th or 9th grade. And slightly after that, as I was more on the older side in the school, I started to fit in more and make friends outside of school. But yeah, I mean, like my cousins were all going out to the matinee, and the matinee would end at like 1 p.m., right? 1 or 2 p.m. And that was unthought of or unheard of for kids, right? And so
the teeny bopper.
Yeah, and then if you could swing it and the bouncers didn't, tell you to fuck off, maybe you could get into the night, the longer hangout time, which is for the adults, right? And so, slowly, started going out and hanging out and making friends. And, now I'd say, I spent the last 22 years of my life hanging out and living around the LA area. And that's taken forever for me to make, like long-lasting relationships out there. Sure. It's a very different world if you're not in the media and entertainment business. I was hanging out over there, and like, during the years while I've been there, and I spent a certain amount of time here and there, but my friend circle is smaller than the one I have here in Argentina. Sure. I still have friends from high school. I still have friends from like in parallel from while I was in high school, but I was hitting the streets and hanging out and skating and this and that, and then older friends that I made along the way that I definitely connect with more here. The local culture. I think that's going back to your original question. What's the main difference? I think it's the quality of life versus what life can afford you, right? In the U.S., life, if you're on a decent salary, you can buy a bunch of shit. You can fill your life with material things, right? Sure. But as far as the things that are that are ingrained into your soul and into your heart, and those things that you're passionate about, people here really care, right? And
you care about what you got, because it's not easy to get. It's like a car. I had 22 cars in the States, because they would cost like $200, $300 each.
The old beater.
I just run them till they die.
Yeah.
But here you buy a car. Here you buy a car. You're gonna take care of that, because they're expensive, man. So you take it, since it requires more effort and more of everything to have your material possessions. You take care of them more. You value them more.
For sure.
Just like a house or an apartment or something like that.
I think I'm more going towards like the fact, like like people actually care when they ask you, like, "Hey, how are you?" Some people fake it, a little bit, but if people, hang out with you for a little bit and just say like, "Hey, how are you? What's going on with your life?" They genuinely care, and they want to know.
Sure.
Right. Whereas in LA, it's so fake, that people, they just ask it because it's kind of part of social bureaucracy, right? And
that's because probably they're all on fentanyl.
There's a lot of that. There's plenty of time for stories like those, but that's for sure, man.
That's for sure. Speaking of fentanyl and trippy rides, you're a Dead fan.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
As like we said that before, and we're here. We got the Dead. We got.
Good old Bertha, you're in the back.
For sure. And tell me a little bit about your Dead experience. You've been to a lot of concerts.
Yeah, so I never got to see Jerry when he was alive. I was, again, 14, 13, and 92 by the time I left. He died in 96.
Yeah, so,
I really wasn't able to go out and see concerts with my older brother, who was the original Deadhead of the family.
Sure.
He was probably 16, 15 when he ran away from home and toured with the Dead on the Northeast and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was always kind of my, like, it was always part of the songbook in the house because he was the Dead fan. But kind of like I remember him going to some, and now I know that what he was talking about, but like back then I didn't, but Fare Thee Well and some of these other iterations of the Dead. But in 2016, I was back in the U.S. and he was telling me like, "Hey, Dead and Company is gonna play," and I was like, "What's Dead and Company, man?" I mean, like. Yeah. Oh, well, it's the current iteration of the band, and there's this one guy called John Mayer playing Jerry's part. I was like, John Mayer, the guy from My Body's a Wonderland? That dude? Yeah. And he's like, no, he's actually doing really good. And he sent me he sent me a couple of clips here and there. I was like, yeah, I could go up there with you. Where are you thinking of going? And he went to, the first concert I went to was The Gorge in Washington State. I don't know if you know about that venue, but it's a beautiful place, and it's exactly what it's called. It's a gorge. It's like as if like, a huge, humongous intergalactic tiger had just ripped through the earth, right, with its claws. It's this big,
perfect place.
It's kind of like the Grand Canyon scenery, right, where the stage was out there at the far end, and then behind the stage was this backdrop of a big, huge gorge, like again like a canyon.
Perfect place for an acid
trip.
And
it was a 2-nighter with camping, and it was just like the old school, perfect hippie experience to get my Jones out, right? And so I decided to go. We went from LA we flew to Seattle, and when we hopped in a car with a bunch of other hippies and booked it out to the Gorge in Washington. Spent 2 nights out there, and my top was blown off, right? Sure. And so by the end of that first show, with all the experience that I enjoyed during the show, I was telling my brother, these aren't magicians. I remember I told him, these guys aren't musicians. These are people who play really well that are magicians. I was just like, everything was on point. Bob was still playing really well. The drummers were in play. The Devils, right? And they're
not very popular here. They're not very popular here. And as a matter of fact, recently over the weekend, there was a band here called Los Redondos, Los Redonditos de Ricota, and their lead singer
he passed
away. And for me, having the lyrics to most of their songs, and their philosophy is kind of like the Dead's, because they never sold out to the record companies.
For sure.
All they did was they toured, but they didn't tour much. Not like the Dead. The Dead was constantly on tour. And they had their fans that went with them on tour, the Deadheads,
Absolutely.
And they camped out. And whenever this band played somewhere, they would have their fans camp out, and they would draw massive crowds.
For sure, yeah. I see Los Redondos as like the closest parallel that you could get to like the Grateful Dead here in Argentina. Genre aside, right? Like music genre aside, while the Dead were like very much a hippie jam band, coming out of San Francisco, these guys are very much a kind of like a pure rock band coming out of
LSD and weed.
And La Plata. And
LSD and weed. That's what it was.
But you get a lot of that here, right? And so that's kind of the same experience that I think people were looking for here. So with all the repression that was going on from back in the 70s, and the fact that these guys were making music back then and they were getting away with it and not getting thrown into jail, right? And so these guys, as we kind of moved into democracy here, they were at the forefront of, you know, this liberation, this opportunity to go out and see music at that level, and you know, have that opportunity for you to commune with your brotherhood, right?
Sure.
And you know, they call it mass, right? And so when we go to Grateful Dead shows, what do we call it? We're going to church, baby, right? And so, you know, I think, you know, there's a lot of parallels that you can make with the Redondos and the Grateful Dead. I think the only one that you can't really do is the actual music itself.
Sure.
You know, even though that you know, Los Redondos has a lot of, you know, mixing of a lot of different genres as well, right? They got some hard rock, they got some, you know, softer rock, and then they got the jazz and some of the other stuff. But I tell you, my first and only 2 shows were the River Plate shows in 2000. But the music has been with me pretty much since I got here.
You've been to Redondo's concert.
Yeah. Back in 2000s, they played these 2 big iconic shows in River Plate, and I went on my own, but I think I went on my own. I don't know. My memories are pretty short right now, but I've met a lot of people on the way.
Sure. That's what it's about. Meeting people and partying with people.
For sure.
That you don't know. And everybody's like, you're one big giant family.
Yeah. And just to reminisce back into all of that, and to honor El Indio, who did so much for Argentine subcultures and the underground, when he died and when he passed this last Friday, right? It was Friday. I did end up going into downtown and going to you know, again, commune with my peers out there, right? And it was a beautiful experience. You know, I think it was tainted a little bit with some politics here and there, but for the most part, it was very peaceful, and it was an opportunity for a lot of people who, you know, just were yearning that experience to be able to get back in touch with what they called the mass, you know, the mass and the church. You know,
they have a habit of tainting everything with politics. Yeah. Everything, even football, even soccer. Everything has, you know, it's
hard to be in Argentina and not talk politics.
Yeah, it's hard.
You know, that's another common theme that I also noticed that was part of the culture from early on, right?
I know there are 2 things that bring this country together, and it's not, you know, the 25th, 25 de Mayo. It's not Independence Day, 9 de Julio. It's football. Mm-hmm. And music. Yeah. From what I've seen, you know, when Maradona passed, it was just a congregation. It was a mass, let's say. It was. And then when Argentina won the World Cup, it was like everybody. It was one country.
I was a trip.
So you know, those are the 2 things that drive.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You know, then politics it's always been a disaster. Yeah. It's always, you know, always will be, unfortunately.
For sure.
I think. Yeah. So what's the anything here that gets on your nerves? You say, oh man, you know, I hate
I think it's. I'll be honest, right? I mean,
you don't know where to start, huh?
Well, yeah, that's the thing with it, right? Like, so like when I'm over there in the U.S., there's stuff that works really well, but then there's other stuff that you're like, God damn it, why can't I have a little bit of that stuff that I love from Argentina so much, right? Like this thing about being able to make friends pretty quickly, you know, being able to hang out with some people, you know, just hanging out anywhere and getting invited to go eat somewhere, and, you know, getting integrated really quickly, and you know, and then, you know, when you come out here, there's all this other stuff that you miss from the U.S., right? The efficiency, right? The opportunities, right? The opportunities to get quickly inserted into a new job if you really want to get back to work, right? And so like, I gotta say, you know, there's stuff I love from here, stuff I hate from here, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think I'm more prone to being here because of the quality of life, not because of the things that money can buy you here, right? The quality of life being, you know, this possibility to really connect with people, the possibility to, you know, make a group of friends very quickly if you're traveling and you're on the run. Today, these days, things are really expensive out here in Argentina, so that kind of ticks me off.
Sure. And you're asking yourself why.
Yeah.
Why are things so expensive?
And you're paying stuff sometimes here in Buenos Aires where you're like, dude, I'm paying more money for a shitty plate of food, and the prices are more expensive than LA, which is one of the 3 top most expensive cities in the U.S. Right? Yeah. And then there's other stuff where you're like, this is so cheap. This is ridiculous, right? I mean, like the meat, right? The vegetables, even going out sometimes where you go out to some of the coolest bars and like a beer's $7, $8, $9 if you do the exchange rate.
Sure.
And then like in LA, I've paid $25 a beer at a concert venue, right?
Yeah. Well, they do that on purpose so you don't drink and get drunk.
Yeah. Is that what they do it for? Man. No, I missed that day at school.
Yeah. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss not being able to go watch sports.
Yeah. Those sports bars.
Sports bars.
That's another thing I miss from over there.
I miss not being able to go to like a football game, American football game. Like a basketball game.
Well, we chatted back and forth the other day.
I would love to go to a baseball game. Like, you can watch baseball here out in Ezeiza, but it's not the same thing. There's a couple people. It's called no K signs, no music.
Plus, you don't have a bar where you have like 10 sports going on at the same time.
I miss
10 games,
live sports and sporting events.
Yeah.
And your local bar. I wish there was a local bar where you can go and pay $2 for a beer.
Yeah.
Instead of going to like some fancy schmancy bar and paying,
Well, that's what we were chatting about the other day, where I was asking you, like, hey, if you know any cool bars? It's been a while since I've hung out in Buenos Aires. And like, let me know where you hang out. And we were kind of getting to the point where, we were chatting about how, like, there's not a place where you have that bar culture where you just sit at the bar, you watch the screens,
sure.
you interact if you want, you don't interact if you don't want, right? And you just have that like that bar feeling, like the Bukowski bars and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, the only person you want to talk to is the bartender.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And
whereas the bartender, used to be my confessionary, right? In the States, right?
Yeah.
Like they knew everything about me, right?
Yeah, you loved your bartender. The bartender loved you.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I mean, like I didn't need to pay a psychologist when I was out there.
I think if they had more bars here, there'd be less shrinks. The shrinks would go out of business. If you had more local bars.
Yeah.
It's cool. And tell me, man, do you drink mate?
I do. Yeah. So I have another kind of side story, which is when we got here in the 90s, my dad basically sold off all his assets in the U.S. and he was trying to figure out what to do when he came back. And I didn't know about it at the time because I was a teen and I, like any teen, didn't give a fuck, right? But apparently he still had his hands into some business out here, and he was with a group of friends, like buying and fattening and selling livestock. And so we went and traveled out to Corrientes province when we first arrived. Had a wonderful time at one of those estates, and his gears were turning, and he decided to go all in, and we bought a huge, very large ranch in Entre Rios.
Nice.
And so during my, early to mid-teens, all the way up until my, 25, 26, 27, I think was kind of when we ended up selling, we owned a big ranch, and we transformed that ranch from purely livestock ranch to, 50% livestock, 50% agricultural. So during all that time, I was, my dad would say these things like, "Oh, you didn't do really well in high school this year. You got to do a lot of studying and catch up and this and that. So you're not coming on vacation with us. You got to go to the ranch and do some hard work." Like, he would impose that as like a punishment or something like that. And I was like, you have no idea, man. I'm psyched. Bring it on. And so, I would take off probably every single summer, every winter vacation during that time that, we were kind of getting started with that, and I would go from Buenos Aires to Entre Rios, and then another thing that would happen was like I thought I knew Spanish, right? Like having spent a couple of months here and learning the language, and then I'd go to Entre Rios, and they'd had a totally different Spanish, and I'd have to learn it fireside with the gauchos and drinking the mate, and learning the different cultures of the province lands and the gaucho culture. So
the first time you tasted mate, what was that like? Did you knew what it was?
Yeah, I did from my grandma's, but they didn't really drink it that much with us earlier on when they were in the States. I guess some of the more memorable ones are like being at that ranch and just drinking like piping hot boiling water coming out of a metal straw, which would just burn my mouth, and it was super bitter and it was horrible, and I'd like have my tongue green for the whole morning until I could drink some water.
Did you shit
yourself?
And
the gauchos would get me up onto the horse, and then one of the gauchos had a wife that would roll him his cigars, like hand-picked tobacco cigars. He'd be like, you like to smoke? Here, have a cigar. And like it was 6:30, I just drank like half a liter of green, nasty, tea water and some dark tobacco cigars, and I'd be puking off the horse, trying to go get some cattle on the back of the ranch. So yeah,
sounds like a bad trip.
Yeah, at the beginning it was. It's an acquired taste. They say
it's an acquired taste.
Yeah. So I acquired that taste.
You ever smoke it? You ever try to smoke it?
No, never. Have you?
Yeah.
And how'd it go?
That was my first mate experience. Actually,
you gotta be kidding. Smoking it?
Yeah, I've told this story before because my grandma was from Paraguay.
Okay.
And we lived in Philly, and she had an apartment, and inside her kitchen there was like a couple cans. One day I was snooping around in there, and I opened up one of the cans, and I found this green herb. I was like, "Damn, check this out!" And I knew my uncle.
My grandma smokes weed.
And I knew my uncle. Every now and then he visited us. He lived in Manhattan. And every now and then he visited us. Okay. And he stayed with my grandmother. And I knew he smoked weed. I was 16. I wasn't stupid growing up. You know what it's about. Yeah. When you're like 14, 15, you know what's going on, especially the older heads and whatnot. So I was like, well, this has got to be weed for when he comes here. He's got some stash. Yeah. So I saw this green herb, and I took some. And then I went out that night, and I said, "Hey man, let's go, dude." You had no phone. You had a phone, but you'd wait for your buddy.
You had to call a landline back then.
Yeah, you call a landline. You go and knock on their door. And say, "Hey, yo, come on, let's go." So I waited for my friends. I was like, "Dude, check it out, man. I got some weed, and I'm pretty sure it's from Paraguay, man, because my grandma's Paraguayan." So he's like, "Oh, dude, let's roll it up." Yeah. So we rolled it up and we tried to smoke it. It was just, oh man, we coughed.
Horrible.
So that was, it was horrible. It was nasty. It burned though, and I remember my grandma used to use the little sticks to burn off her warts, man.
Okay.
Yeah. It was pretty.
Yeah,
common.
the old. What do they call it? The household remedies.
Yeah, the household remedies, man. So my first mate experience was I smoked it.
Yeah. Over time, I really got into it, and I'd say nowadays I'll drink my coffee first. Yeah. First thing in the mornings, I'll drink a glass or two of coffee, or a cup or two of coffee, and then kind of mid morning or early afternoon after lunch, I'll drink mate. But then I try to stay off the mate after like 4 or 5 in the afternoon because you won't go to sleep. Dude.
Yeah, I know.
It'll keep you up.
Some people say it doesn't have as much caffeine.
Oh, it does.
But it does, man. It wires me out.
I'll tell you a story. I remember going to Washington State near Seattle, a place called Olympia, Washington, which is actually the capital of the state of Washington. I was there visiting a brother of mine, and I was looking for work back then. I'd had a stint of being here in Argentina, and it was not going well. It was 2003, so it was like 2001 was the collapse. 2002, there was nothing happening here. 2003, nothing happening. The economy was just getting smaller and smaller, and no jobs for anybody. And I went to the States, went to the Olympia, Washington, and did odd jobs, right? And odd jobs in the States are, construction, demolition, all these, weird ass shit that people throw at you for a day or two. Sure. Day laborer, right? Yeah. and they found out I had a driver's license, and they're like, "Oh, dude, we need you, man." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Yeah, all these other fucking deadbeats, they got DUIs, they can't drive." So they asked me to drive a truck and a trailer bed, and we were doing some work for the garbage company out there, helping them sort some stuff out with the bins that they had and they needed to change, and I was drinking mate because I was the one driving the truck, right? And like half of these people were Latinos, but they had never seen that thing. They're like, "What the fuck is that? Is that a bong? What are you doing? You can't do that on the job." I said, "No, it's mate. It's this caffeine drink. You gotta drink it." And one of the guys actually, got on board with me, and we were drinking it, and he was like, "Damn, that shit's good, man. It gives me energy. I can run out and go after these bins and get all this stuff done." And so like it has its properties, for those people who have never tried it. Get on board. It'll give you the juice.
All right, cool, man. Yeah. So you mentioned that you live out in San Isidro.
Yeah, Becar actually.
Becar. Yeah. Now, everyone, most of the Gringos, expats, whatever you want to call them, they all hang out in Palermo. And what's there to do out in Becar? Is there...
Becar is actually pretty dead. I'll be straight up with you. San Isidro, you got a little more. Becar, it's like San Isidro and then Tigre are the two main areas that are around there. There's some smaller spots and pockets of little commercial areas, but I'd say it's a good place to have a chill life. And that's what I do out there. I live pretty close to the station, so I have the two avenues out there, which are Libertador and Maipú, Santa Fe, or Centenario, which is all the same road. But I've got the trains around there. The buses. I've got supermarkets around there and a couple restaurants and bars here and there. But I'd say it's not a partied area. Right? No, definitely not. But you got the riverfront out there, so you got a lot of nature. It's
upscale though.
Yeah. You got marinas out there.
Pretty high end though, San Isidro.
Yeah, Martinez. You could say so, right? So a lot of the founding families live out there, right? If you think of all the names, right? Becar Varela, you got the Familia Casuso. You have all these other names that are from there. Vicente Lopez, right? So that was all fractioned off earlier on, and when they came out and built the city. But I don't know if you remember about the history, right? The higher end of the people used to live in the south zone, so near Quilmes and all that area. But then there was a pest or some sort of a infestation, a plague. That's right. And so when that happened, people abandoned the south area and moved to the north. Yeah. And that's where all that got developed. But that's kind of early on into Argentine history. But yeah. Like from where I am towards the river, it's very, very beautiful. From where I am towards the Panamericana, slowly and surely it gets a little bit more, more condensely populated. Some people would say, hey, there's a couple shanty towns out there. Yeah, there are. There used to be a lot of shanty areas, but today it's a fairly well developed area. I'd say you have Punta Chica, which is a little nook of the end of Becar and the beginning of San Fernando on Libertador, which is starting to become a little bit more popular. You have everything in Tigre and near the station of Tigre of the train Mitre, and then you can walk around the first island, as they call it. It's still connected through bridges, but it's part of the original delta, right? But that's super fun to hang out in. El Bajo de San Isidro has a bunch of spots to be and just hang out and drink and bars and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I would say Becar itself is not a happening town. It's a nice little sleepy, old school. To be blunt, like I actually have some questions as to what the fuck is going on with Becar, man. Why can't we get any bars out there that are solid and like shout out to anybody out there if you're come on, man. Let's get some bars out there. Love to get a nice little pub out there.
Yeah, a little dead bar.
Yeah,
a little Grateful
come
Dead
on.
Bar. Yeah.
The one bar that used to be out there was a little pool bar, and it's on on the corner of the police station, right? So it's not very welcoming, right? And now it's basically a carniceria.
Sure.
but
that's a good place for a sausage party.
Exactly. But yeah. I mean, like typically when I want to go out and have meet up with friends, I'll either go to house parties or gatherings.
Cool.
Or come out here to downtown if I can. Hop on the train.
All right, Alex. We're running out of time.
Yeah, this blew by fast, man.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
I would love to have you back on the show.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be hanging out.
For sure, man.
And we'll come up with a couple more cool things to talk about. Man.
Anytime, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Is there anybody you want to say hi to out there?
No, not really. Anybody who's seen me knows me. They don't need my appreciation, man. Other than come out here, hang out with Paul, have a good conversation, help others that are not from here to learn a little bit more about what the culture's like here. It's good. It's a good landing spot to come on to Perry's show and learn, what you might need to know before you get here. So yeah, listen to Paul Perry. He's the man. He's got some great insight. Cheers, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the show. Me. And we'll catch you next time for another dose of the Gringos and Buenos Aires podcast.